Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I am your host, DJ Maverick. Today, we have the super talented Michael Brooks-Jimenez in the house. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Before we dive into everything, maybe for the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and raised on the south side of Oklahoma City. I've been an immigration attorney probably for about 28 years. And probably about 6 years ago, ran and was able to win an election to become state senator for the south side of Oklahoma City.
Tell me about Mount St. Mary then.
It was great. Yeah. And so, I enjoyed it. And so it was all the benefits of going to a small school, but right there in the middle of a big city. So If you got sick of the people you were going to high school with, you could always find friends from other schools.
Right. What were you into high school? Were you into sports? Were you into music? Like what kind of kid were you?
Well, I played sports. And so I played football, ran track, and played basketball. Okay. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't very good at any of them, but I was very enthusiastic.
Yeah, got it. What about outside of school? Did you do anything outside of school, or were you just mainly focused on your academics?
No, at that time, I think I was mainly, I wish I would have been more focused on my academics, but also was involved in student government, but really involved there at the Mount for a long time.
Okay, got it. So in high school, if I would have pulled up to Michael Brooks-Jimenez and I would have said, hey, what are you going to be when you get out of here? What do you want to do when you grow up? What would have been the answer?
Oh man, it's been so long ago, it's hard to remember. Mm-hmm. But I don't think being a lawyer would have been out of the realm of the things that I wanted to do. Okay. And then also, I think one of my earliest memories, as far as political wise, was when my mom volunteered me to work for on a campaign for state senator over on the south side of Oklahoma City, probably when I was about 10. And so I think I've always kind of harbored a desire to run for Senate District 44.
Yeah.
And so it's awesome. Cool that it turned out and gave me the chance to be able to do it.
Okay, very cool. So where did you go to pursue that law degree?
Well, I went to OU. And so in between, I went to OSU for undergrad, got a degree in political science, and then from there went to OU for law school.
Got it. Okay. So I know for me, growing up in the south side, when I went to OU, it was a little bit challenging. I looked around. There wasn't very many people that looked like me.
Right.
What would you say were some of the challenges that maybe you experienced when you got to college?
Well, I think for me, it's a little bit different. So my mom was Latina, my dad was white, and so I turned out looking more like my dad than my mom.
Well, me too.
But I think that my mom always instilled a lot of pride in our culture and pride in our heritage. And so whenever I got to OSU, I was able to volunteer for HASA, which was the Hispanic American Student Association up there, and eventually served as president there. But it was interesting because it was an opportunity to be able to meet people from all over the state of Oklahoma.
Definitely, yeah. Did you grow up then speaking both English and Spanish, or how did you not lose that Spanish along the way?
I wish I would have learned when I was a kid. And so my mom was a Spanish professor at Oklahoma City Community College. Okay. And she would try and teach me and my two sisters when we were kids. Unfortunately, she would do it on Saturday mornings when we would have rather watched cartoons. Right. And so as a result, we weren't very cooperative. And then my dad, bless his heart, wanted to try and help, but he had the worst accent in the entire world. Okay. And so it was set against those difficulties. After a while, my mom threw her hands up and decided that she wasn't going to be able to teach us Spanish. Yeah. And so what happened is that when I got out of law school, for a variety of different circumstances, I decided to start my own practice. Okay. And so one of the things that I did is I put an ad in the Spanish newspaper saying that I spoke Spanish when it wasn't completely true.
Really? Okay.
Yes. And so as a result, lines of people started coming and talking to me about their legal issues, legal problems and everything else. And they did it all in Spanish. And so I had my very own personal kind of immersion class every afternoon until awesome. I was able to get conversant. And so as a result, whenever it comes to talking about things that have to do with the law, whether if someone's been arrested, they have charges pending, or if they have an immigration question or case, I think I can talk all day long. And my beautiful wife, Jessica, would say that sometimes I talk in my sleep more than in Spanish, more than I speak in English. Yeah. But I wish I would have learned when I was younger because it would have been better.
Sure. I think it's amazing that you decided to do that because I remember growing up, oftentimes I had to be the translator in my family, right? So here's this little kid translating legal documents, medical documents, making appointments, right? So absolutely. I definitely identify with maybe some families that feel more comfortable speaking in their native language when they're dealing with some of these legal issues, right? So
absolutely,
that's really cool that you're able to do that. Right?
Well, and I think that's part of the reason that we've been fortunate as far as the law firm is because every single attorney in the office speaks Spanish. All staff members speak Spanish. So it's a place where our clientele can feel at ease for sure.
Sure. I'm sure you've had a lot of rewarding experiences, but maybe if you can mention a couple of rewarding experiences that you've, gotten to experience being a lawyer and dealing with the Hispanic community here in OKC.
No, absolutely. And so I think, one of the most rewarding experiences is probably when DACA happened.
Okay.
When President Obama announced DACA and having the opportunity to be able to literally help thousands of people to be able to get their work authorization, especially young people who'd come here when they were little, who didn't have a whole lot to say about when or how they came to the United States, but had been successful since getting here, all the way through high school, and unfortunately running into dead ends whenever they wanted to pursue careers.
Sure.
To be able to help to be able to get them work authorization and be able to allow them to be able to pursue their dreams and to be able to widen those horizons was definitely and is still definitely very rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine probably maybe some of those students probably didn't even know anywhere else, right? Like they probably grew up here to the U.S. So to say like, hey, all of a sudden you have to go to Mexico or wherever, that'd probably be difficult, right? Like they probably don't even identify at that point, right?
No, absolutely. And so that was one of the heartbreaking things whenever I started my practice in 1996, 97, that there weren't the same opportunities that there are now. And so back then we didn't have a law that would allow high school graduates to be able to pay in-state tuition. That was one of the things that the community was able to fight for and be able to get done. And so also to be able to expand that by having the opportunity for work authorization so that once you do get out of college, you have a chance to be able to pursue those career goals and do other things has been a great experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure probably maybe your family, even some friends have mentioned, hey, you're super successful with your law degree. Why do you want to be a senator all of a sudden? Why do you want, you have spare time all of a sudden? I'm sure you're super busy.
Well,
so maybe walk me through what was the process there to decide to do that?
Well, I never felt like I was, that I had extra time.
Right.
But like I said, it was a dream that I saw the former state senator, his name was Keith Leftwich. And so I always saw him in the community, always saw him on the South Side, never had a doubt that he was up at the Capitol and he was fighting for my family as well as everybody else on the South Side. And so he kind of became a hero of mine. And so what happened is that I always kind of held it, inside and didn't really talk to people about the dream of maybe running for office at some point.
Okay.
And so when my wife and I, when we got to a point where we were ready to be able to build our first house, my wife gave me just only one restriction. She said, well, you can build the house anywhere you want as long as it's south of the river.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
As long as it's on the south side. And so we were able to build on the south side, but whenever we moved out of that Senate District 44. And so inside I kind of decided, well, that was a dream that I wanted, but it doesn't sound like it's ever going to be able to happen.
Yeah.
And so what happened was probably about 20 years ago, whenever they did redistricting, lo and behold, they changed the district lines. And so rather than me, like a lot of politicians moving into the district, the district moved back on top of me.
It was destined to be.
Right. I kind of took it as providence that it was meant for me to be able to run.
Definitely.
And so I ran the first time in 2014, ran against an incumbent who kind of described the South Side as a war zone and was really, really critical of the people that I love and the community that I'm so proud to come from. And so I couldn't take it anymore. And so in 2014, I decided to run against him.
Yeah.
And so running against an incumbent is really, really tough. And so I was blessed to have all the support, all the financial support, all the volunteers that I could have possibly have wanted. But unfortunately, we came up short. And so, again, it was one of those dreams that I thought, well, I gave it my best shot. I gave the people a choice. They chose the other guy. And that if you would have asked me, I would have told you I'd never dream of running for office again.
I can imagine. I mean, that was your dream, and then destiny worked out. Then all of a sudden, you weren't able to accomplish it, right? Most people would have said maybe it wasn't meant to be, but you decided, hey, this is maybe I need to just push harder next time, right?
And so really, I mean, I left that first campaign with no regrets. I felt like we had done everything that we possibly could and was completely at peace. And then lo and behold, like 2.5 years later, my wife and I were at dinner.
Okay.
And my phone was sitting on the table on vibrate. And all of a sudden it vibrated. And then it vibrated again until it almost vibrated off the table. And so what had happened was that the guy who had beaten me in 2014 had gotten himself into some legal trouble.
Oh, wow.
And so as a result, when he got into legal trouble, people immediately started asking me if I would ever run again. And so again, after I had kind of closed that door, the door reopened completely. Wow. And so, with very little notice and very little, initial preparation, I was back and running for office again in 2017. Wow. And so interestingly enough, it was that second time that we were successful. And so it was a great honor.
That's incredible. I mean, once again, destiny, right? Are you a firm believer of destiny and sort of things working out or what?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I don't know if I'm the best planner, but I think when opportunities present themselves that I'm good at being able to recognize them and to be able to jump on.
Sure. Yeah. Most people would probably imagine that in order to be able to run for office, you either have to have a huge network or maybe like lots of funding, right? So did you feel at any point that you were limited by sort of your resources or you kind of was just like, hey, the community has my back, I'm going to do this?
No, so I think I was kind of uniquely situated to be able to do this. And so I'd already been in the community and been involved in nonprofit boards, for example, the Latino Community Development Agency, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, Leadership Oklahoma City, and a lot of organizations to where I had really been able to build a broad network of people. Yeah. And then also through my practice, I was able to build, I think, strong community ties within the district. And so I was really, really blessed that when it wasn't anything necessarily intentional that I did. Yeah. But whenever I decided to run and I asked my friends for help, they were there and they were ready. And so whether or not that was financially or whether or not that was willing to be able to, hang door hangers or to be able to go knock doors or volunteer. Sure. Like I said, I've always been humbled by the amount of support that I've been able to get, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you remember the first time that you walked into your office when you were able to accomplish that huge goal that it sounds like you've had for a very long time? Right. What were the emotions when that happened?
Well, and so I think one of the more remarkable things is, so I was elected in a special election. And so, our race was the only one on the ballot. And so when we won, it was interesting because normally they'll have a swearing-in ceremony where, half of the senators will take their oath, so 24 at a time. And so it was interesting because I was getting sworn in by myself there in the chamber of the Senate. And so we made a party of it. And so, of course, we brought food. We brought pan dulce. Nice. We brought tacos. We brought everything else.
I like the way you roll.
Amen. And we always got to feed the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was interesting because not only were the, the gallery where people normally sit and observe, not only was that full, but down on the floor, they allowed supporters from the campaign, people from the community, to be able to go on the floor and sit at those senators' desks. Yeah. And so we had a few hundred people show up for a swearing-in ceremony. And so I don't think it was necessarily so much about me, but having someone from the community to be able to be out there. Yeah. And so really, whenever I decided to run for office, the other reason I decided to run is because I think I had a foot firmly in both communities. I had a foot firmly in the white community on the south side of Oklahoma City by going to Mount St. Mary's and growing up, around lots of other Southside leaders. Sure. But at the same time, my mom ran the amnesty school at Little Flower Church, which was the largest amnesty school during Reagan's amnesty. So she helped thousands of people to be able to get their permanent residence. Got it. And then after that, she started a free clinic also there at Little Flower. And so as a result, having a foot in each kind of community, I thought that I knew that there were people much brighter, much smarter, and much more talented than me, maybe a little bit younger, that could do even greater things than I might ever have a chance. But at this point, that if I could push the door open a little bit, to create that crack, to be able to create that network of supporters and people that are already used to going out and volunteering on campaigns, then we would be able to get other Latinos elected.
Sure, that's awesome. No, just listening to you walk me through that process, it almost seems like it was more meaningful the way things worked out because it was just you and the community that got to participate. Otherwise, they may have not gotten to be part of that, right? So, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And so it was interesting. And so, just the friends that I'd made over the years. And so, a lot of people, I think at the Capitol were kind of scratching their head at that swearing in ceremony because I had Republicans, who had, held, big positions in the Senate previously, as well as, Democratic leaders both there, and so people who didn't necessarily know me or weren't familiar with me, they were kind of curious, how someone could have, that kind of diversity of people who would all come to that swearing in.
Yeah, that speaks volumes of sort of your character and, your relationships you've been able to build throughout the community. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Definitely. I appreciate it.
One of the things that I understand is you're sort of trying to expand driver's license eligibility, right? So maybe talk to me a little bit about that.
All right. Well, and again, being involved in the community and having represented Latinos in the state of Oklahoma for the past 25 years, I know that one of the biggest obstacles is unfortunately, unless there's real immigration reform, there's not an opportunity for a lot of people to have a path toward getting their permanent residence. Yeah. And without their permanent residence currently in Oklahoma, you can't get a driver's license unless you have a work permit or a green card or something like that. And for a lot of people, that's simply not possible. Mm-hmm. And so what I did is year before last, I decided that I was going to go ahead and run the bill that I always wanted to. And so what that would do is because the state of Oklahoma has the power to be able to issue driver's licenses to anyone that they want. Okay. And unfortunately, for the past many years, Oklahoma has ceded that power to the federal government by depending on federal immigration law to tell us who can get a driver's license. Mm-hmm. So rather than do that, the idea that I came up with was that everybody can pay taxes. Sure. And normally when you're in a debate about immigration, that's one of the first things that detractors will bring up is, well, they don't pay taxes. Well, the way that things are set up, if you have taxable income, even if you're not documented, the IRS will take your money and give you an individual tax ID number. Right. And so what I did is I proposed to be able to change the requirements. Instead of it being immigration status, who pays their fair share? Who pays those income taxes? And so if you could produce an income tax return showing that you paid your taxes, you'd be able to get a driver's license here in the state of Oklahoma.
Okay, that's very cool. Yeah, I mean, like you said, everybody pays taxes. I think even just making normal purchases, right? Like they're paying taxes and then maybe perhaps not even getting the normal tax return as other people that are eligible to do that as well, right?
But that's the thing is that anybody can, if they have taxable income, they can declare it, they can apply, and the IRS will issue them an individual tax ID number. So it's a 9-digit number. Mm-hmm. But with those two things, basically what my bill would allow people to do is it would allow them to be able to get a driver's license. And so if they can get a driver, and so there are so many benefits to being able to do this. And currently, I think there are about 19 states who have already expanded driver's license eligibility. And so the projections are that the number of uninsured motorists in the state of Oklahoma would go down by about 75% if we're able to do this. Okay. And so also we were able to to check the numbers. And so the estimates are that there are about 85,000 undocumented people in the state of Oklahoma. And so we were able to check with the tax commission, and they were able to find that there were already 33,000 people who were using those tax ID numbers to file their tax returns. Guess how much they paid last year in state income tax?
I can only imagine. It's a big number, right?
$26 million. Wow. And so 33,000 paid $26 million. Yeah. And so there's an additional 55,000 people that could be paying their taxes but haven't started yet. If we were to get them on board to pay their taxes as well, in addition to having uninsured motorist rates go down, what this would mean an additional $50 million in revenue to the state of Oklahoma, without changing any tax law or increasing the tax liability to anybody who's already paying taxes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think, the few sort of like moments we've had here together, you can definitely tell you're super passionate about immigration law, right? So tell me what drives sort of that passion behind it? Because I think even in your law practice, that's one of the things you focus on, right?
Well, I don't think there's anything more patriotic, I would say, than immigration, because we are a nation of immigrants. And the thing that I think has kept the United States dominant in so many ways is the steady flow of immigrants. Those people who are willing to come here, and sometimes even take their life in their hands to be able to come here because of the opportunity. Because unfortunately, in most other countries, wherever you're born, it defines who you are and what you can do. But in the United States, that's not true. And so being able to facilitate and help those people who've come here with that dream, the newest group that's come here to be able to do that, and to be able to help them to be able to succeed has been something that has been, I guess, one of the greatest rewards in my life is being able to work with the clients that I have, for sure.
I bet that's super rewarding, and that's a great segue because I think one of your other focuses is humanitarian visas, right? You're doing a lot of work behind that. So tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, and so this is one of these things that's to me is interesting, but for years we'd been limited in the types of applications that we'd filed in our office to traditional family-based applications, and so one of the things that has kind of come up is there are fewer and fewer people that can qualify because the immigration system is broken. Oftentimes, if someone has left the United States and if they've come back without permission, they have a permanent bar where through a normal family application, they can't get their permanent residence. And it doesn't matter if they're married to an American citizen, doesn't matter if they have 3 or 4 kids that are all American citizens. None of that matters if you've left and you've come back. But there are certain visas that the penalties for leaving and coming back don't apply, or they don't apply as heavily. And so as a result, when we talk about humanitarian visas, we're talking about T visas, which are for people that are victims of human trafficking, U visas, which are for people who are victims of violent crime, and VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women's Act. And so the interesting thing is that for most of those visas, there are waivers available that even if you've had a prior problem either with immigration or perhaps a prior criminal problem or some other issue, that there's still a path to being able to get your permanent residence. And so what we've been working hard to be able to do, even if people have already come to see me or another attorney, is to be able to begin screening those clients, to be able to reassess their cases, looking at the possibilities of being able to apply one of those types of visas.
Okay, that's very cool. So in addition to that, it sounds like you're also trying to attract more Latino representation into government, right? So is that sort of just like a byproduct of you being there and noticing like, hey, we need more representation, or what's driving that, I guess?
No, I think that was one of the main reasons I decided to run.
Okay.
And so it's definitely not a byproduct, but it's one of that and driver's licenses are my 2 goals during the time that I serve in the Senate.
Okay. And so you were like, from day one, you're like, we need more Latino representation. We need to get more people to run for office.
And so, and not just in the legislature, but in the school board, city council, all those places. Because, I mean, at this point, Oklahoma City Public Schools is 61% Latino. And so we need to be able to be represented proportionally when it comes to school board, when it comes to, right now, currently, there's no Latinos on the city council for Oklahoma City. And right now at the legislature, we just started a Latino Caucus. And so we currently have 5 Latino legislators.
That's awesome.
It's awesome, but it needs to be better.
It definitely needs to be better. But I mean, I'm thinking like even not in official representation, me growing up, it would have been cool to have some of these role models to say, hey, there's a blueprint here. I can see, I can do some of that stuff, right? Because growing up, I didn't have anybody like that, right? So that's very cool.
That is the super exciting thing. And so for me, I'm already gray-headed and, a little bit older, but being able to see other elected officials like Arturo Alonso, state representative.
Yeah, we had him here. Awesome guy, super young. Yeah, very cool, very sharp.
So inspiring. And then Juan Lecona, same way, family man from the south side of Oklahoma City, who has decided to represent our community at the school board for other younger people who may be a nerd like me that was interested in politics whenever he was growing up, to be able to see someone that looks like me or comes from the same kind of background that I do, to be able to know that there's that opportunity, if that's your dream, to be able to go and chase it. I think that will be, if there's any legacy that I can leave, that's definitely one of the ones that I definitely want to try.
Yeah, that's a great legacy. And I think just, you being so adamant about that, I have no doubt you're going to be able to get more people to run for office. So that's amazing.
Well, and if anybody who's watching
definitely
is if that's their dream, don't hesitate to reach out to me at my Senate office, because we're already trying to identify races and candidates so that we can develop a bench so that when seats open up, that we're ready to be able to run.
That's cool. So outside of being a senator, lawyer, what do you do for fun? Do you have any time for fun?
I think I work a lot, but I think mostly it's spending time with family. And so, as I mentioned before, I'm married to the love of my life, Jessica Martinez Brooks. And so she is fairly driven herself. And so she works for Metro Tech, but serves on lots of nonprofit boards and is definitely an influential person here in Oklahoma City. And so in addition to that, we have 2 kids. And so we have Joaquin, who's getting ready to be a senior at Mount St. Mary's. Yeah. And then we have Lucy, who is going into the 7th grade at Rosary Catholic School. That's cool. Tell me about Joaquin, because I know there's a unique story behind Joaquin, right? Right. So tell me about Joaquin. Okay. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the most important things that ever happened in my life is that Jessica and I, we had been married, I think about 4 or 5 years, and had tried starting a family, but unfortunately it wasn't coming together the way that perhaps we wanted, or perhaps traditionally happens. And so I remember that and it's one of those things we were dealing with. And one day, I'll never forget, we were driving down the road, and Jessica looks at me and she goes, "You know what?" Because we'd been talking about it for a long time. I think I just want to adopt. I think you and I, we need to adopt a child. And I said, "Yes, absolutely. We will do it." Wow. And so you're like, "I'm in, all in." Right. Well, yeah. And so for me, I always had confidence that we were going to have children. Yeah. How we were going to have children was really up to Jessica and me, but I had never had any doubt that we were going to have kids. And so whenever she gave me the green light, the cool thing was that I'd gone to law school with a couple of lawyers who specialized in adoption law. Oh, cool. And so we had talked about it over the years. And so once Jessica decided that that's what we were going to do, then I was able to reach out to him and say, "Look, Jessica's given me the green light. We're ready. We're ready to adopt." Yeah. And so the interesting thing was that my friend told me, "Well, you're a nice young couple, you don't have any kids yet, and so we need to get a book together, kind of a profile book that'll show what your house looks like, where the child will sleep, all these different things so that we can show it to potential birth moms." And so, of course, Jessica and I, as busy as we always are, we didn't do that. Oh, and, wow. and the other thing that she said is you need to be prepared because this can happen kind of quickly. Okay. And so, for better or for worse, we never got our book together. But the crazy thing was that 2 months later, it was a Saturday afternoon. I don't remember what I was doing, but Jessica was in the other room watching TV, just kind of relaxing. And it was in December. And all of a sudden, I noticed that I'd missed like probably 7 or 8 calls on my cell phone. Once again, the phone vibrating off the desk. I've never picked up yeah, I need to answer my phone more often. I see that. But anyway, and so I initially it was a 580 area code, so out in rural Oklahoma. And so I thought that probably I'd had a client who'd gotten arrested over the weekend, and they were calling to see if I could get that person out of jail or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, but I'm feeling so good. Everything else is so good. And so I sat there for a second, and then finally I decided to go ahead and call the person back. And so whenever I called the person back, the person on the other end is like, it wasn't a client, and immediately said, "Michael, I'm up here in Ponca City. I've got this baby. Do you want to come pick him up today or tomorrow?" No way. And I was like, just like that, split second. Yeah. And I was like, what? And the person, and it was my friend Paige, but she didn't even tell me who she was. And so I'm trying to put it all together. Who is this and what is she talking about? And so I said, "Paige, is that you?" And so she said, "Yes, I'm up here in Ponca City. I've had an adoption fall through. Yeah. And so I've got a 5.5-month-old little boy. Wow. He's half Puerto Rican. His birth parents are Puerto Rican and Mexican. He'd be perfect for your family. Do you want to come pick him up today or tomorrow?" You're like, remember when I said it could happen at any moment's notice, right? Surprise. So I was like, "Well, Paige, I'm going to have to call you right back. I need to talk to Jessica." Yeah, probably should mention it to Jessica. Maybe, right? Yeah. And so I went into the other room, and she was, just relaxing, watching TV. And I said, "Jessica, turn off the TV. I need to talk to you." And later she would tell me, Michael, I thought you were getting ready to ask me for a divorce, and I didn't even know why you were mad at me because you were so serious.
Hey, we need to talk.
Right. And so she turned off the TV, and I said, Jessica, there's a baby up in Ponca City. Do you want to go pick him up today or tomorrow? And she's like, what? And I said, yeah, no, I've checked it. I run the traps. I've been able to check everything out. There's a baby up in Ponca City. Do you want to go pick him up today or tomorrow?
Wow.
And so, lo and behold, within about 20 minutes, we jumped in our Navigator at the time, and we were driving to Ponca City.
That's awesome. Did you have a crib set up?
We had nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
We had nothing. And so we got up to we got up to Ponca City, and we were calling family members as we were driving up there. Hey, I think we're going to go pick up a baby, right? No, what? No, a baby. We're going to go get a baby. And so we got up there, and sure enough, Paige and her husband went and brought Joaquin back to us. And so it was interesting. It was a situation where there was a prior adoptive couple, and for any number of reasons, they decided that they weren't going to be able to go forward with the adoption. Yeah. But they were very, very generous and very, very kind. And so they sent, along with Joaquin, everything except a crib. They sent formula, they sent a book, they sent his schedule, they sent clothes. And so we ended up loading everything into the Navigator. Mm-hmm. And so Jessica and I, neither one of us even knew how to put a car seat in the car because we hadn't really been around babies. Sure. And so we were able to get him strapped in, and we were driving back from Ponca City. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I heard someone crying in the back seat as I'm driving home, and it's not the baby.
Wait, what?
It's Jessica. Yeah. And so I was like, Jessica, you're going to be okay with this, right? Right. She's like, I'm just a little overwhelmed right now.
I bet. Yeah.
Right? Because if you would have told us 3 hours earlier that we would have had a baby, we would have thought you were crazy.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, we got home. And so it was probably about 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. And so both of us, having not been around babies a whole lot, but having some common sense, we decided, well, we probably need to change his diaper, right? It's been time. We probably need to do that. And so we put him down on the ground, and here we are, 2 college graduates down there trying to do the best we can. And we lifted him up, and we'd put the diaper on backwards.
Oh, no.
And I think he could see the fear in our eyes. Yeah. And so he immediately screamed at both of us. But that night, he ended up sleeping in his car seat, and I slept on the floor. And anytime he'd stir a little bit, I'd rock him a little bit. Yeah. And so the next morning, we took him to church. And so people are like,
what's going on?
What is going on? And so here we are with a 5.5-month-old baby. And then the one of the funnier parts was that evening, Jessica decided to call her boss. We've had a baby. And so she called and Jerry, this is Jessica. I don't think I'm going to be in tomorrow. We had a baby. A what? What are you talking about? No, we had a baby over the weekend, and really, you know what? I'm probably not going to be back for probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Sure.
I'm taking maternity
take
leave.
Some time off,
right? Yeah. And so anyway, it was again one of those things, one of those opportunities that I didn't plan for, didn't necessarily anticipate going forward that way, but it was one of those things that changed my life for the better, without a doubt.
Another destiny. Destiny. I'm noticing that you sort of are fortunate with your destiny, right place, right time, and being prepared.
This is better than counseling. This is better than therapy right now.
You're welcome.
You're able to tie all these things together. Yeah. But no, without a doubt, I think I've always been grateful for the blessings that I've had. And so having the chance to be able to talk to you really, I think, brings that home again, that there have been times where I've been very, very fortunate for sure.
Yeah, but I think what I'm noticing too is that you're not afraid. You don't back down, right? You're into this uncertain moment, and you're like, yeah, let's go.
Right?
Why not, right?
Absolutely.
I'll figure it out.
I think that is definitely my approach for sure.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. And I don't know how you got up to speed to being a dad all of a sudden, because, there's typically, it's like maybe some lessons, some courses, right? That how to change a diaper. That's what you sort of like had to learn on the fly.
I think that God was looking out for us because the good thing about having a 5-month-old is they're not nearly as fragile as a newborn, right? And he was already sleeping through the day, or sleeping through the night, and he was, he was already cute, and he was already smiling and laughing and doing all those things. Yeah. And so for us to get him at his age, when we did, and the fact that he had been loved on his whole life, and he'd always been wanted. It was just a weird set of circumstances that he happened to fall in our lap. Is just amazing.
Yeah. I'm sure he's taught you millions and things about life, but if you had to boil it down to maybe a few things that he's been able to teach you about life, what would those be?
Well, I think one of the things that I think has been most fun is, about being an adoptive parent is that he brings a lot of talents that I don't have. And so as a result, I love music, absolutely love to listen to as much and as many various types of music as possible, but I have absolutely no musical ability. And I can't dance.
Yeah.
and like I said earlier, I play sports enthusiastically, but I don't play them well.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing is, and I don't know if that's nature or nurture, but Joaquin came through with a lot of those talents that I didn't have.
Just naturally innate, sports, music, dancing.
Yes,
yeah.
and it was liberating because I could be proud of it because I didn't feel like I had any ego involved.
Right.
It wasn't
that's
like,
true.
oh, that's my boy. He got that from me.
Yeah.
I could purely enjoy and be proud of it without it making it about me.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. Right.
Who would be on your playlist?
Well, and so I think I grew up being a punk rocker, and I listened to a lot of punk rock when I was a kid, and so I still listen to a lot of that. I listened to a lot of reggae. So I think driving over here, I was listening to John Coltrane, and so. Cool. But I have I think a very varied musical taste. I listen to a lot of stuff. I think I had a chance to be able to work back when there were still record stores.
Yeah.
In Stillwater, I had a chance to be able to work at a record store, and so it was my very favorite. Other than being an immigration attorney, of course.
Yeah.
But maybe one of the funnest jobs I definitely had, because back then. You didn't have streaming, and so the only way you could find out about music was to open it.
Right, and you were there, the first person to listen to this record.
Right, and I didn't have to buy it.
Yeah,
right.
More importantly,
if there was something I was curious about, I could open it and put it in the playbin.
Yeah,
and then also I can't lie, but one of the things is kind of growing up listening to punk rock and a lot of other stuff. I took maybe a certain pleasure in putting things into the music system there at Hastings that maybe people in Stillwater had never heard before.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it was kind of fun.
Yeah, one of the things Barack in his playlist, it always goes viral, right?
Right.
His most recent playlist, he had some Regional Mexicano.
Right.
He had La Bebé on his playlist, and people were going crazy, like, oh, Barack, do you really listen to it? And it turns out he does actually listen to all this music. So I think music is growing, great overall, just because it's everywhere, right? It's in your pocket. You can listen to any artist, right? But Regional Mexicano in particular is blowing up everywhere.
Absolutely.
Would you say that's just sort of because our community is growing as a whole and it's just becoming a worldwide thing? Or what do you think maybe is driving that?
I think that part of it is probably that the population, that when you look at the different populations of different ethnic groups, so many of the other ethnic groups are aging, right? So that probably 40% of their population is over the age of 50.
That's true.
And so the cool thing about Latinos is, me notwithstanding, that we're a very, very young population.
Very true.
So the number of people that are still working age, are less than 18 years old. Like I said, Oklahoma City Public Schools right now is 61% Latino, but kind of working age from 18 to 60, we're 25% more likely to have our population be in that group as opposed to other populations here in the United States.
Yeah, that's awesome. When do you think we're going to get our first Latin president? What do you think is going to have to happen for that to occur?
Well, that's another thing that I think I feel very strongly about is trying to be able to get people out to vote and to be able to have confidence and faith that your vote counts. And so, again, that's part of the reason that me and Representative Annie Mance decided to start the Latino Caucus. And so it's bipartisan. We have 2 Republicans, we have 3 Democrats, we have 2 senators and 3 representatives. But it's more about, I think, Latino identity and being able to educate voters to be able to vote. Because there is no doubt the strength that the Latino community could have if we engaged politically.
For sure.
And I, you know, for better or for worse, I know that lots of kids, their parents came from places where the politics was all sewn up, and there wasn't real races or real impact, you know, ways that people could impact their communities back in their homeland politically. Here you definitely can. I mean, I'm walking proof that you can.
Yeah.
And so Arturo Alonso is proof, you know, and so Juan Licona is proof. And so as a result, you know, to be able to restore that faith and educate young people, you know, to that really the future is theirs if they want it. Absolutely.
That's cool. So this is a Maverick podcast, and, you know, being a Maverick is, you know, doing something different outside the box, right? So can you maybe share a moment where you were a Maverick and you did something that most people were like, hey, Michael, what are you doing here? This is a little bit, you know, maybe crazy is not the right word, but maybe something that's unattainable, or maybe a challenge that you had to face.
Well, I mean, just trying to think. And so I don't know if maybe it was when I started my law practice, or maybe it's when I decided to run for office. Because like I said, even though I'd always been interested in politics and always kind of harbored this dream, I don't think a lot of other people did.
Yeah.
And so we had friends like Arturo Delgado from the Laborers Union who had been involved in politics, but being able to draw other people in. And so again, kind of what you were talking about earlier, you know, that I had extra time maybe to be able to run for office. Well, I don't think that's necessarily the way it worked out. I didn't have extra time to be able to do it. I was fortunate to have good staff and other attorneys that were working at the firm to allow me to be able to do it. But yeah, I think that left a lot of people scratching their heads.
Right.
Why, especially as part of a super minority, because currently in the state Senate, there are only 8 Democrats, of which I'm one, and 40 Republicans. You know, why I would want to subject myself to that abuse.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, I definitely can agree with that, because, you know, we were talking to Arturo too, and he has an engineering background, right?
Yes.
And he mentioned sort of the same thing, where most people were like, hey, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table if you're going to decide to do this.
Right.
Right. So that's another great example of that.
Well, and like I said, you know, I am just a humble servant, but people like Arturo Alonso, his future is unlimited, and I don't think that was an easy decision for him.
Sure.
You know, to be able to pass up a job working as a mechanical engineer in Austin, Texas, and to be able to decide to stay in Oklahoma, and after getting elected, to be able to volunteer and work as a substitute teacher so he could actually see what's going on with young kids, and to be able to go and advocate for them at the Capitol. Speaks volumes as far as his priorities and what he can do going forward, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. So if people were to describe Michael growing up, what would they say? Athletic? Would they say musical? How do you think that they would describe you?
I think I was involved in everything. I don't know if you ever saw that movie Rushmore.
Oh yeah,
Wes Anderson. You know, where he started the fencing team and he did this and he did that. And so I think growing up, I don't know if I was necessarily part of one clique.
Okay.
You know, in high school, I think I had friends kind of across the spectrum, and so I like to hang out with the smart nerds, because I could always learn something. I like to hang out with the kids back then, even though I couldn't stand heavy metal music. I'd still hang out with those guys, because it was fun.
I'm kind of getting the vibe that maybe there was a punk band phase. Were you ever like sort of wanting to start a band?
I had dreams, but I never had the illusion that I had any talent or aptitude. And maybe with a punk band, you don't need as much talent or aptitude.
It's all about being lo-fi, like just get it out there, right?
But no, and so never had any illusions about that. But like I said, I love music. I love listening and finding new adventurous music, and just really enjoy it for sure.
Awesome. What's on your goal list for this year? You know, we're halfway through the year. It's amazing. It's flying by, right? So what's your goal list for the rest of the year?
Well, and so at the law practice, we're trying to double the number of cases, or increase by 50% the number of cases that we opened this year from last year. And so what's happened is that we've been able to bring on a couple very talented attorneys. And so Natalia Riveros Jacobson had worked for me for a long time. went to go work for somebody else, and then now she's back and has brought a lot of business knowledge and business strategies to the practice. And then also Sam Grimaldo Wargan, who ran for city council, who recently graduated from law school, is helping me on criminal cases.
Awesome.
And so to be able to build that capacity, to be able to more fully accommodate the demand when it comes to Latinos who have legal problems, I think that's number one. I think number two is that we're creating talking about the Latino Caucus, that we're creating a legal entity. And so as a result, a 501c3 charitable organization for the Latino Caucus, ideally that will provide scholarships to young people that are interested in politics. And then also a 501c4 where we'll be able to educate people, register them to vote, and maybe to be able to come up with perhaps a kind of a leadership forum for high school and college kids that are interested in politics, so that we can be able to grow that interest and nurture it, again, so we can grow representation.
Yeah, that's a great segue to maybe people that are the viewers out there.
Right.
I can imagine someone on the South Side maybe getting inspired, hopefully, by this, right? So
sure.
If they maybe want to follow in your footsteps, what's some of the advice that you would give them?
Well, I would hope that they're more successful than me, and that they don't necessarily have to follow in my footsteps.
I think you're being too humble.
No, I mean, my life, I'm grateful for everything that's happened in my life.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd necessarily wish it on somebody else so much as everybody can live their life.
Yeah, definitely.
But if there are ways that they've got their path, and if part of their path is similar to my path, if there are ways that we can help to be able to facilitate that, you know. And so again, if we have young people, young Latinos that are interested in running for office, the cool thing is that we have kind of a crew of people who are primed and have had experiences in multiple elections to be able to go out and knock doors, or to be able to hang literature, or to be able to come up with a website, or to be able to provide the information of other successful Latino business owners that might be able to support a campaign financially. So that the only thing is, ideally, maybe for the work that I've done, you know, the people who start now are maybe 10 steps ahead of where I've started. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I think definitely, you know, and it sort of reminds me of what's happening with Messi right now. I don't know if you caught Messi last night, but, you know, he's in the U.S. playing for Miami now.
Right.
And to me, it was just like a magic moment, right? Like you see like David Beckham, you see LeBron, you see Kim Kardashian, you see like everybody together, Kim Kardashian, right?
Right.
You see all these people coming together and just having a magical moment, right? For this moment in time.
Absolutely.
Right? I want to see more of that, where it doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter where you're from, and you're just like together as one, right? So
absolutely.
Did you catch Messi at all last night or no?
I did not.
No? Okay. It was pretty magic. Yeah.
Right.
It was cool. So I hope that, you know, we get to see more of that in the U.S., because it's a great reminder that we are sort of a land of immigrants, and everybody brings, you know, unique skill sets, you know, and they come here and we're better because of it, right?
And so that happened in Florida?
Yes.
Well, there's no better place to remind people that we're a nation of immigrants than in Florida right now,
true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so no, that like you said, you know, to be able to have kind of that meant to be moment, that poetic moment that kind of ties everything together. I mean, it's cool when that happens. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was in Florida. So you imagine, you know, Messi, Beckham, you have LeBron James, you have Kim Kardashian, and they're playing against Cruz Azul, which is a Mexican team.
Yes.
So just think of all the layers, all the magic all the logistics, everything that had to happen for that moment in time to happen.
That's amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
That's very cool.
So if people want to find you, if they want to see, you know, what you're up to, you know, plug in your website, social media, where can people find you?
Okay, and so this is one of the things that Natalia has been working on, to be able to bring me further along. And so maybe that might be another surprising thing, but not as good, is that I am not as engaged on social media as perhaps I should be.
Okay.
And so as a result, we still have the website. So it's Brooks-Jimenez.com over at the law office. We still are on the Senate website. If anybody has a question or has a constituent concern or issues with state government, they're always welcome to be able to reach out there. But at this point, as far as, you know, Facebook and everything else, we've been fortunate to be able to bring on a firm that's helped a lot to be able to raise our profile so that we can use that to be able to communicate to people, whether it be changes in the immigration law, things that are going on in the legislature, or anything else like that.
Okay, cool. Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. We are getting the signal here that we're running out of time,
right.
But the doors are always open. Anytime you want to swing back by, we can talk about punk music. We can talk about whatever you want.
That sounds
You're always
perfect.
welcome here on the podcast.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Michael Brooks-Jimenez on the Maverick Podcast. Keep grinding, because in dreams we trust.